The Battle of Horseshoe Bend. On March 27, 1814, U.S. troops under the command of Major General Andrew Jackson stormed the Creek village of Tohopeka in Alabama. When the bloody Battle of Horseshoe Bend was over, the majority of Red Stick warriors lay dead, and the first step had been taken on a journey that would end in 1838 with the Trail of Tears for the many native tribes. The Creeks, who were also known as the Muskogee Nation, were generally considered to be a civilized tribe because they adopted many of the ways of the European settlers. However, a faction of the Creek warriors, along with warriors from several other nearby nations that did not want to adopt European ways, formed a group known as Red Sticks due to the distinctive red color of their war paint. The events leading up to the Battle of Horseshoe Bend began the previous summer. Angry about an attack on one of their supply trains at Burnt Corn Creek by militiamen from the Mississippi Territory, the Red Stick warriors attacked and destroyed Fort Mims, located north of Mobile, Alabama. When the attack ended, at least 250 men, women, and children lay dead. Also killed were many Creek people who did not support the actions of the Red Sticks. The massacre at Fort Mims resulted in white settlers and the U.S. Army seeking vengeance on the Red Sticks. Most of the soldiers sent to avenge the Fort Mims massacre marched south from Tennessee under the command of General Andrew Jackson. Jackson's soldiers had previously fought other skirmishes with the Red Sticks, including a previous battle near Horseshoe Bend that ended in a devastating defeat for Jackson. On March 26, 1814, Jackson and over 2,000 soldiers camped near Horseshoe Bend for the second decisive battle at Horseshoe Bend with the Red Sticks. Sending the majority of his troops across the Tallapoosa River to take up positions on the opposite bank, covering the large river bend, Jackson ordered an attack on the Tohopeka village early on the morning of the 27th. Positioning two cannons on a small hill overlooking the Red Stick Fort, Jackson ordered the guns to start firing, hoping to create a hole for his troops to pass through. The fort wall was too strong for Jackson's relatively small guns to punch through. The Red Sticks, led by the famed chief Menawa, prepared his warriors for an intense battle, even though the Red Sticks were outnumbered nearly 2-1. General Jackson's troops, stationed on the Tallapoosa River, who were under the command of General John Coffee, included regular Army troops along with Cherokee warriors and Tennessee riflemen. They confiscated a number of canoes from a nearby creek village and used them to ferry men across the river. These men set fire to the village near the Red Stick Fort at the foot of the bend and opened fire on the Red Stick warriors from the rear. Taking advantage of the diversion, Jackson ordered his soldiers to storm the fort. Fighting was intense. Major Lemuel Montgomery, for whom the city of Montgomery was later named, was killed, but his soldiers breached the fort and attacked the Red Stick warriors. Among the soldiers wounded during the battle was Sam Houston, who would later become a key leader in the fight for Texas independence from Mexico. Do you recognize his last name? The battle now turned into a bloodbath. Knowing they were fighting for their survival, the Red Stick warriors refused to surrender. As the battle continued, a few Red Sticks managed to escape during the night, including their leader Menawa. In the end, nearly the entire Red Stick force was killed in the fighting, with more than 800 of the 1,000 warriors killed in the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. U.S. casualties were not as great. Jackson reported that his command suffered 49 killed and 154 wounded. The results of the Battle of Horseshoe Bend broke the back of the Red Stick Rebellion, forcing an end to the Creek War of 1813 to 1814. Jackson's army swept into the very heart of the Creek Nation, accepting the surrender of many of the Creek leaders. Jackson forced the Creek to sign the Treaty of Fort Jackson, which ended the war. In exchange, the United States received 20 million acres of land. This land makes up most of the modern state of Alabama and part of southern Georgia. After Horseshoe Bend, the Creek were surrounded by white settlers and 20 years later were forced to give up the rest of their lands in Alabama and relocate to new homes west of the Mississippi in what is now Oklahoma, then known as Indian Territory.